sometimes I miss Bali so much. It's like this wave that's going through my body. And yes, it's just like when I feel that when I'm looking at old pictures or videos, or when I'm talking to people who are actually in Bali, which I've been doing today. So I've had a conversation with the yoga teacher and Ayurveda coach, Charlotte Skogsberg. I met her in Bali a few years ago. She's amazing. And she just launched her first online program. And so I wanted to dive in there and hear everything about how she started that, what she's been doing in the last years, how she launched her online program, what's her vision moving forward. So we talk about all those things. I hope it's going to inspire you and, maybe inspire you also to do something like that. And if you want to learn more about how to build an online business, check out my program, Blissful Biz Incubator, and you can apply for that. You will also get access to a private advanced training where I share my framework, how to build a profitable online business when you go to susannereiker.com/application. That's susannereiker.com/application. The application only takes 2 minutes or less. There's no obligation to join anything. And the training is going to be really, really interesting for you when you are thinking about building an online business. And now let's get started and let's hear my conversation with Charlotte. Hey there, welcome to the Blissful Biz podcast. I'm your host, Susanne Reiker, here to help yoga and wellness entrepreneurs build a thriving online business. If you're ready to make a bigger impact and earn money online, you are in the right place. Each week you learn about websites, digital products, social media strategies, and what's working now to build your online business. And now let's get started. Hi, Charlotte. Welcome to the Blissful Biz podcast.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see your face, and you bring me back to Bali right now. It's crazy. Sometimes it feels like this wave is going through my body. When I miss it, it's very emotional. Really. Maybe you know that feeling when you've been back in Europe.
I have. Yes, I understand fully.
So we've met really years ago, and you've been, I think, at that retreat where I was a guest, and you've been the yoga teacher there. And then I practiced with you at Samadhi Bali. I know you're really big in Ashtanga. And so I've been following you for a while, and I laugh like you slowly over the time. I think like years ago, you didn't even have a website. So we talked about that, how you really embraced the entrepreneurial side of your business. And now you really moved online and do all kind of things. And I'm just really excited to hear more about that. I know it's so inspiring for our listeners as well. So just like, why don't you start just telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you do? And then we can dive into all the things about your business.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you so much, first of all, Suzanne, to bring me on the podcast. I'm really excited. And I'm just happy to see you as well, because it's been a while. As we said, it's been, since just before COVID and all of that. I'm from Sweden originally, and I lived my whole adult life in France, actually. So I'm a little bit of both, and then in Bali since 7 years now. And I came up on yoga in the early 2000s, but it wasn't so big in France. I know that it was bigger actually in places like Germany already back then, but in a lot of places in Europe, it was absolutely not very known. And so I practiced for myself with a book that I had found, and it was more a question of trying to find some kind of peace of mind because I was quite unhappy. And when I finally actually kind of came to the point where I decided to change lives and become a yoga teacher, that was actually quite a lot of years later. And it wasn't so much linked to yoga in itself as it was a shift in my personal life where I just kind of broke off with everything that was kind of my life at that time. And it was a bit of a difficult decision. So it took me actually 2 years to really fulfill the whole thing. But it was my early 30s as well. So I think it's also a lot of people when they come like in the early 30s, they kind of start to questioning a little bit what's going on in their lives. And either they just continue what they're doing, or it would be the breaking point for quite a few.
And yeah, for me, it was the early 40s.
Oh, really?
I'm like a late bloomer. Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's it. But yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just saying that because then I happen to encounter a lot of people who did it at that same time. I guess it depends on what we attract in as well, right? A little bit.
Maybe, yeah. No, but also like I think in Bali, I always felt like one of the oldest person in the room for sure. Yeah, I always had those 10 years ahead of everybody else.
Well, I think that might be true, but if it's in any case reassuring, know that I feel that way now. Like everyone is in their 20s.
That's true.
And I'm over 40, and I'm like, am I the only one?
I know. It makes I actually I had some change in my 30s as well, early 30s, like I think it was 32. I went on the round the world trip. So I quit my job, went on the round the world trip. I felt really old back then. Everybody was in their 20s, especially in Australia. And yeah, so it's weird. And now I'm just like, I don't care. It's just living my life. Yeah.
But I think as well that it's very interesting what you're saying, because I remember when I started to have these thoughts about changing everything, quitting my job and all of that. And I was then, let's say I must have been 32 when I decided to leave my job, and 32 to 33. And one of my colleagues that was quite much younger than me, he was really astonished by the idea that I had, because for him, that was something you did much earlier in life. And I do, because, he was maybe 24, then. And so he thought that was something that you do in his age. But what I've also come to feel is that I think that when we did it, when you did it, and then when I did it, it was still something that was a little bit marginal, like a little bit different. Whereas now it feels as if there's been this shift where just a lot of people choose to not take the conventional side at all, even from the beginning. So now you find all ages all of a sudden changing everything.
Yeah, that's so true. And you also, like when you're traveling and doing things, you meet people who do all those things. I remember like it was, I think, 2002 when I did my round the world trip. And like the people that you met that were like eternal travelers or something, most of them were just like escaping something, never wanting to face another challenge in their life, right? They were not building businesses, or I mean, of course, some were, but like the majority, it was like a different tribe.
Yeah.
So and then I remember when I came to Bali for my yoga teacher training, and I think I went to my first co-working space just because they had good internet there, and it was just like you met all those people doing all those things. It was so inspiring.
Yeah.
And the same, of course, like with yoga, with spirituality, with health and wellness, there wasn't really much around when I was in my 20s or early 30s. So after my round the world trip, it was 6 months, I went back to actually working in advertising. I mean, I loved so many parts of that job. And but also I didn't see any alternative at that point, probably.
Yeah, I think, did you say 2002, 2003? Yeah, for sure. I think that was about the time when I first got in contact with yoga properly. Like I think I bought the book in like 2005 maybe, or something like that, the book that I had that. And then it was, it would be like where I was living at the time, which is Toulouse, which is one of the biggest cities in France, right? It's like the fourth city. And it's an international hub. It's got the Airbus headquarters and all of that. And the only kind of yoga studio was really like for marginals, like dreadlocks, people who smell a little bit strangely. Like, it was, it was, in this air of like.
And you came from finance, right?
Yeah. Well, I was actually.
Headhunter.
Yeah, exactly. I came from human resources. I was headhunting financial profiles, but I was human resources. I actually have a background. My actual background is clinical psychology. So like educational wise, but I was recruiting, financial profiles. and so there was no yoga studios really to speak of. You could do Pilates, I guess, but so when I finally made this kind of jump, when I ended my engagement, I was supposed to get married 6 months later, and I quit my job and like those things, right? And I remember when I decided, I was in therapy at the time, and I remember I decided, oh, this is what I want to do, and I was like, I want to become a yoga teacher. And it was already in my head. I was like, I'm going to move to Bali because I'd been there before, right? Many years ago. And I'm going to do this. And it was not something that people did back then. So it wasn't like this thing like everyone does it now. And my therapist said, yeah, of course. She just looked at me. She's like, yeah, I can see that happening. But I didn't straight away. I had a few roundabouts. I lived in Biarritz in the south of France, in the Basque countries for about a year, between 1 and 2 years. And I started my yoga teaching there. So I had a small studio, and it was really, oh my gosh, it was so hard because I had no idea what I was doing. Even like I was just freshly teaching, and also like, how do you market this and how do you do that? Like all the tools that maybe existed already, but I had never heard of, like Canva or whatever. Like none of that. I don't think
anything. It existed back then. It's like, it's so much easier now that we have all those tools. And so before then you probably needed someone to code a website for you. And
yeah, absolutely. And I remember there's a guy who's like a graphic designer in that area who's quite known in the brands of like surf brands and stuff. So I had him do a logo for me. And then someone else who was in like computers, he helped me like to make these like flyers and like, put them out in different cafes and stuff, And I think that if I would have like stayed and worked on that and then become accustomed with all the tools, I think I could have done pretty well there. But then after about, a year and a half, 2 years, I moved to Bali. So then everything changed, obviously.
It's an amazing place. Anyway, Bali. So what did you do in Bali? I mean, it's, I think when you started, it wasn't as difficult as it is now to get a job in Bali. So I know so many people asking me, how do you get a job teaching yoga in Bali? I get asked, you probably. So what would you tell people who say like, I want to do that too?
Well, so yes. So just to say and to comment on that, yes and no. So it was because there were not so many people. It was obviously easier. Like you would just go so in Canggu, there was like 3 places where you could teach yoga, right? More or less 3 or 4. No, there was a few more, but about that. And you could just walk in and basically say, I'm a yoga teacher. Do you have any work for me? Kind of thing. And since there weren't that many, it wasn't so hard to get a job. And like, basically, I think as well that most of the teachers who were there for a bit, they kind of knew each other as well. So if someone was kind of teaching somewhere and then like, oh, we need more teachers here, we could use another one. And then why don't we get her from there or whatever, or him from there? So in that sense, that was easier. But then it was also very complicated because admin wise, it was just impossible. Like, most of us were working under the radar. And then after a while, they started obviously to realize, well, what they started to realize was that there was money to make from it, of course. But anyway, so then it became really hard for a couple of years because it was just impossible to have the right papers. And it was very complicated. And nowadays, I would say that on the paper front, it is actually easier because there's now a structure they realize as well, of course, that it's more interesting for them to simplify the fact of being able to get some kind of paper here so that more people will be doing it not under the radar, but paying taxes and this and that. However, obviously today there's like, you open your door and there's like 5 yoga teachers sitting waiting. Like, there's like, it's just become a little bit. So now it's hard to say because now as well, of course, there's so many more yoga places as well. But then again, there's so many people. And then there's even places where there's like only Russian speaking people going because the teacher can do it in Russian and because they don't speak English. And probably other places to have something similar. And, so there's, it's a different scene.
Okay. Okay. Is it still is it easier when you decide, okay, I'm going to move to Bali, like long term for at least a year or something? Or
it's easier, but I mean, in the sense that now there's papers that can work for everyone. However, it's not, I feel as if it's still just as hard for someone. If you have a lot of money, everything is easy.
Okay.
But I think that there's a different kind of people who come now are not, well, you do have them as well, but it's less of the adventurous people who just come a little bit, beach bums and kind of like making their way somehow. It's much more of people who actually are making a lot of money online, and then they, like the whole dynamic of people who come here is quite different to even 5 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So what were the last 2 years like? Is everything getting back to normal? I know Bali opened up again, or there's still restrictions, or what's going on right now?
So right now we have finally opened up again completely. People can now come in, and if they're fully vaccinated, they can just come in just like on a visa on arrival, just like it's always been before. If they're not fully vaccinated, they may need 2 or 3 or something like that nights of quarantine. We'll see how long that will last as well. But anyway, that's how it is right now. But otherwise, people can just come in. If they're fully vaccinated, they can come in as they wish. And we've had restrictions for a while on and off. And there would be restrictions, of course, about face masks. That was anyway like a thing in Asia since the what's it called again? H1N1
and SARS as well.
Yes, from the SARS, from the different SARS. So it's always been, for many years, it's been quite common in Asia in a way that people go around with like face masks. So that's been the whole time. And there's been a lot of restrictions when it comes to, social distancing. And then there's also been, for a while there, after they started to vaccinate people, there was also all this, I guess it's been quite a lot in a different place in Europe as well about you had to be vaccinated in order to go into malls and to the cinema and this and that. And that has now been taken away.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So that's good. So we're happy about that. And slowly but surely, it's coming back to normal. The last 2 years were very, very quiet, which was wonderful for the island to kind of resource, I think, a little bit again. But the difference is that now there's so many projects. So now it's building everywhere.
Oh, that was so crazy already. Like the last time I was in Chengdu, especially. Oh my God. It was insane. There was building everywhere. Yeah.
Absolutely. And now even like I get the feeling that the whole beautiful coastline down on the Bukit, so in the Uluwatu area, is going to disappear for huge hotels.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's nothing we can do about that. But
no.
It's just a little bit sad. Yeah. So tell us what you do right now. So are you still teaching yoga? And tell us a little bit about your online business as well.
Yes. So I have actually, it's interesting that we speak about this specifically today, because I just found out today that I finally, after a year of struggle, actually, have the green light to start teaching again, to have the right papers. So I will actually start teaching next week again, because for over a year, I have not been teaching in a studio. So I'm very happy actually to do that again. It was good to get a nice long break from it, because it also allowed for me to kind of reconsider how I position myself and what my future will look like. But it's still going to be nice to have some regular normal classes again.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so that's going to be nice. I'm going to be teaching like 3 classes a week, which is just enough because of the things that I do online. So I think that a lot of people just had to kind of start to think about how they can convert their activity online with COVID. And for me, it was the wonderful moment because I was thinking about it for so long, not really knowing how to do that. When COVID hit, I just didn't really have a choice. So basically what I started doing was just, first of all, to record classes that I would sell online. So I had someone help me to put together a WordPress website. And I have an online course, actually, which is just like a self-paced course that I already had in order to drive a little bit more as well of traffic to the website and to me and things like that. And then I started selling these just classes as well, like a couple of packages of like classes. So I would be able to, while people were in lockdown, quite a lot of people were actually interested then to have like, the possibility to practice at home and things like that. So that was for a good part of COVID, that was like the main focus. And then what I did actually last year, while everything was kind of standing still, I had this wonderful opportunity to increase as well my kind of range where I intervene, because my teacher who certified me to become a yoga teacher also certified me then last year to be an Ayurvedic practitioner, which is something that I've worked in and been interested in ever since I became a yoga teacher. But it increased my own personal interest in it over the years because I noticed how much it was just having this huge effect on me. So when I had the opportunity to do this training with her online, because everything was obviously happening online for the past 2 years, it was just the best thing ever, because then I could I just started after that to kind of like promote the fact that I did this now. And I had such a huge response to, because people are so drawn to that field. I think in a way also with COVID, and we realizing, just how maybe sensitive we are to things, and how maybe conventional ways are not outdated, because they're really important to have, of course, but that people are starting to look into how they can change their lifestyles in order to become more healthy, actually.
Yes, for sure. And I think also what the pandemic helped with is that people are more open to learn something online, to connect online. I think that's been a huge shift happening in the last 2 years here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even just the fact that I created a program. I'll tell you about it in a second. But what I also did was that I have people who I've been in contact with because they maybe have been to Bali years ago or something, and who are following me on social media, and who got in touch because they wanted therapeutic help as well. And because of COVID, it was really natural for them to just say, like, I'm happy to do it online, even if I'm in, someone is in just outside of Miami, someone else is in, the Arabic countries, and they want to do therapeutic work with me, but online, which was something that in my world from before, I was like, how could that even happen? And actually it works really well through like Skype and Zoom and things like that. And so that, I think, definitely was pushed to the front to become normalized with COVID.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. But so what I did as well is that I actually, I created a program, an online program to work on your health, to work actually on adopting, I should say instead, the Ayurvedic principles, which means basically adopting that lifestyle and to progressively bring yourself back to health. And it's basically as if it was to go on a retreat, like it's a lot like that, right? But the advantage is that people don't have to go anywhere, and that we can therefore do it for a much longer time. So it's like an 8-week program, which would be so hard, of course, for people to go on an 8-week retreat, right? They can't really take off work that way. And so that has been, and we were in the 7th week right now. So it's the first time that I do the program. And I was really convinced of my tool and, how I structured it, but also wondering, how will this sit with people since we're doing everything online? And it's just amazing. It's working actually really well. And I'm so happy to see the transformational side to them, even though everyone's in a different country.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. So how did you market it? Did you already have an email list? Did you mostly use social media? What did you do?
Yeah. So mainly through social media. I actually ended up paying a business coach to help me to kind of structure it, because like on a strategy level, it's just really, really overwhelming, of course, to do things on your own. Like you have your niche, like what your quality is, what your capital is, what your work is. But then the other side to it is, even if you can have a certain comprehension of what would be needed to a certain extent, it's just really, really difficult. So to have someone who's an expert in that and who looks at it from an outside perspective and who says, do this now, that was just so helpful. So
I totally agree. Yes. Did you find them?
Yeah.
Did you find someone in Bali? Because there are so many amazing coaches.
Yes, I did find someone in Bali. However, we did everything online anyway. She's here, but she's from Switzerland. But it was also really important to me to get someone that, how can I put this, that I really feel has credit for it, because yes, there's so many people here, but that also means that there's so much, BS as well. Like there's everything. I've met with people who, even though it wasn't because I was looking for someone, but met with people, you go to a cafe and the person next to you is some kind of coach, and then going to try to sell you something. And you feel very quickly if you would be interested in working with them or not.
Yeah, that can be a little bit too much. Yes.
So. Yeah. So I knew this woman, I should say, I was going to say this girl, but she's 35, so she's a woman. I knew her from before because she had, she'd come to me for yoga previously, years ago. And then I followed her a little bit already on social media, and I knew already that she'd been, like, before she started doing these things, she was working in marketing for like 10 years or whatever, So I knew, okay, she's not just off the boat, she knows what she's talking about. And she's also not someone who tries to, I felt it was really important to not meet with someone who are trying to sell you the idea that you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow kind of thing, that's more realistic.
So she basically provided you with like a framework or a little bit of a roadmap that you use then to structure your course and also to sell it. Love it.
Exactly. So she was like, she even asked me when we started, she's like, okay, what's your goal? And I'm like, I need to make money. Like, I'm really low on cash. And she said, okay, in that case, the best thing to do is we create a coaching program, and we start something that's a little bit more high end ticket than what you already have of the self-paced things, because that way you can also charge a little bit more and you don't have to work so hard to get so many people into it. And it was really interesting for me to understand that viewpoint. And so we started working on that straight away. And it started just with social media work on, like, even just like, okay, who's your avatar? Like, who's your typical client? And then how can we work all the, posts and stuff like that towards aiming that kind of person. And it was only once we had really like put together the program that she then said, okay, then what you'll do for the future is that now you start to work on a lead magnet and like funneling. And she said, we're doing this at the end because since your goal was to make money first, I rather have you try to create a program and get some people in who pay you something so that you start to feel that it's, actually working. And then the whole, like, more like that kind of funneling and having a lead magnet and all of that is like my work on my own for the next 6 months. But she gave me kind of guidelines how to do it, which was great.
Oh, I love that. Yes. And I totally agree with that strategy. So you don't need to wait for 6 months or longer to build your audience before you can sell something. You should like sell something right away, set something up. And yes, now obviously you need to do the work, grow your audience so you can launch the program again to new people. And then you're going to have all those testimonials and feedback from your first round. So it's going to be even more amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. So can you share a little bit about your results? Like how many followers did you have on social media? So it was probably mostly Instagram, right? Or also Facebook? Yeah. What did you do? And I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to share like how many people you got in there, I think it's always so helpful and inspiring for other people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I've made like a huge difference in my following. I probably have about the same number of followers. So I have about 7,000 followers. And I think that what's changed really, and it's like maybe I've gained like a couple of hundred, I don't know, something like that. But what I've noticed was that by targeting differently and being less, this is how I should present it. I understood that what I was doing before was more of, I feel inspired to write about something and I'm sharing it, just like anyone who is not using social media for business would do. However, I didn't see that is obviously not the best way to actually use it as a promotional purpose. And that's what I understood while I worked on this, is the fact that you need to be so much more repetitive actually in what you're doing. You need to be much clearer in what you're doing. You need to niche yourself so much more. And I'm still working on it, because we worked together for like 3 months. So that was just like end of the year last year and January of this year. And so I'm still tweaking, I'm still learning and understanding. And what was good was that we had weekly sessions, me and her, then of course, as well. And we would do them on Zoom as well. And she would record them, and then I downloaded them so I can come back and be like, oh, all right, this is how she explained about this or that tool, or something. Because I'm still working on a lot of that. For my program, it's I was supposed to have, we had the idea and we were supposed to have 5 people in the program, and I was quite happy about that. And then one person kind of failed to really commit. And so in the end, I had 4. But I'm happy.
That's a great start. That's a really great start. And yes, as you already realized, it's only the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So what is your vision for your business now? Where do you want to be like in a year or something?
Yeah. So in a year's time, I would like for this program to have been, I'd wish to, let's say that in a year from now, I hope that I have run this program at least 2, maybe even 3 more times if possible. And therefore having also increased the number of people who join in the program. And so that will be kind of something that will be absolutely my main, let's say, also financial kind of resource. But what I also would really love to do is that once you have these people kind of in your, what's the word? What do you call that? You have them in your spectrum, like they're on your...
Yeah, they're part of your community. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly. In my community. Then be able to quite regularly do retreats. And then these people would most probably be inclined to come for like just a week's retreat. But then it's so cool because it would be people who then already worked with me for 8 weeks. And then we would have this like 1 week retreats where we level up, because and I'd really love to do that. And I see myself doing that. Don't ask me why, but I see myself doing that in a Greek island somewhere. I'm planning to come back to Europe. Yeah. So I'd love, that's what I would love for. So in a year's time, if I've then run it like 2 or 3 more times, I have more of that like community, and then offering like the first of the retreats, let's say early summer. And there would maybe even be a couple of retreats during the European summer of the next year.
I love that. It's like this hybrid then between like connecting online and then meeting in real life. And yes, and using the retreats to add a different level of experience, right? So, so there you would go deeper, or yeah.
I would go deeper there, and then also one of the things that I've noticed. So, I'm thinking, I don't know what that would look like, but I met someone here in Bali, a French lady who is the yoga teacher as well, but she's also a neurobiologist. And what we've noticed as well is that, first of all, we're interested, it's a bit of a nerdy thing, right? Being interested in how the understanding from neuroscience today on how we function in the mind and the body and all of that really just confirms these 5,000-year-old practices that Ayurveda and yoga actually already knew, even if they didn't have the instruments. So I'm really keen on trying to work on something between those two. We've already decided that we're going to do like an Instagram live. So she's French, and so we're kind of honing in on the French audience, because obviously then I speak French as well. So as a start, that would be to kind of focus on the French audience, because we would do this in French, and then see as well how many people would be interested in. We'll actually start talking about the fascinating subject of habits and how habits are formed and how we make our healthy routine of a new lifestyle into a habit that will then last. And then speaking from both kind of the Eastern and the modern, let's say, perspectives.
And I love that.
Yeah. And that is something that I'd love to then take to not just the French level, but also to another level as well. And then maybe do retreats. I don't know what could happen there.
I love that. That's a great niche, because I mean, so many of us, we know, like in theory, all the things we should be doing to feel better. And it's so hard to stay with things. And you have all those New Year resolutions. I'm going to do yoga every day in the morning. In there.
Exactly.
Right. And how do you actually stick with it? And how do you make it a part of your daily routine? Yeah. I think it's something that so many people struggle with. And it's definitely a unique positioning. You're not just like a common, or like you don't just teach Ayurveda and yoga like everybody else.
Exactly.
You have like a different approach, and also like with your science background and psychology background. Yeah, makes super much sense. So let's talk about more about your niche. So do you focus in like what you're sharing now? Do you focus now more on Ayurveda? What do you share now? So how do you present yourself in a way? Has that changed, or?
Well, yeah, I have to say that I am focusing a lot on Ayurveda. So what I've come to notice is that when people, so what I'm sharing a lot is Ayurveda, because that's also what the program is mainly about. But what I notice as well is that whether someone approaches me to work privately or even come to class or whatever it might be, whether it comes from I'm interested because I'm not feeling well, so I want to have an Ayurvedic consultation, or help me with my yoga, or help me through therapeutic work. Actually, it always ends up to go quite into the matters of the heart of the person, right? So it always goes very quickly towards a more therapeutic kind of work together, but which just comes to show that actually it all works together. So someone who is not feeling well in their heart, let's say, or mind, if you will, we can definitely work on that together. But unless we also start to look into what's the lifestyle of this person, how is this person treating their body and their minds on a daily basis, and then all of a sudden we integrate the rest. So I really focus as much as I possibly can on Ayurveda, but actually it integrates all the parts. It integrates a therapeutic part. It integrates yoga as well, because even like the yoga philosophy is really self-realization. What is it? It's it's therapy from the East, from 5,000 years ago.
But that's how I see niching, actually, is like you have those tools in your toolkit, like Ayurveda, yoga, meditation. And what you just talked about is you identified like the struggle, the main problem people are having that you're solving. And that's your niche.
Yeah. Yeah. So so that's like I'm sharing. That's that's what I'm sharing about, like, or am I answering your question? I'm not sure.
No, I mean, I asked you just like how you present yourself, how it changed what you're focusing right now. So you've just been sharing. Basically. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of barking going on in your background.
Yeah.
What's going on with all the Bali dogs?
Yeah. Hang on just one second.
Don't worry.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Sorry. It's because I had the deliverer of water who came, and the neighbors' dogs, they always bark when there's people, especially if there's Indonesians. And so that's, I had to
don't worry about it. It's like Bali background.
Yeah. Good. All right. Yeah, great. So, so that is what I'm focusing on right now. I'm focusing on kind of a holistic approach, basically.
Okay. Yeah. That is beautiful. Love that. So when you launched it and setting up your website and thinking about what you're going to create, I mean, you're like, looking back, it always sounds like when you hear somebody else talk about it, oh, smooth sailing, it's easy for them, right? But we all know that's probably not true. Can you share us about like what's been your biggest struggle in that whole process?
Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest struggles for me is really this like targeting. How could I explain this? It's like I found it hard, and I still, like, now I'm more clear because I work with my clients, right? But I think this idea of putting myself in the other person's shoes, so that what I put out there actually speaks to them. Because of course, in a certain way, I do understand that it's a little bit what spoke to me some years back, but people it's this idea of learning how to sell it without losing the value of the information that I want to give. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure, actually. So you've been struggling with how to combine it, like the messaging and the selling part, or how to?
Okay. Like in the way that what I think like this. So knowing, let's say that if you wanted to really hit home with someone, it means that you need to know what their pain point is, right? And then in order to know what when you know their pain point, then you need to present your offer in a way that they'll be like, oh, this is the answer to my issue. But then it also implies that you're presenting something that you're trying to sell, but you don't want to lose. You don't want to make it like just like a sales pitch. Yeah. So I have found it very hard to be targeted enough, to really like be specific enough that it speaks to the right person, and then also make it a good enough selling in it without feeling as if I'm losing, the substance or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And it also might be a little bit, of course, uncomfortable, this whole selling part. I mean, it is for, I think, everybody. So,
for sure.
I think what many people are struggling with is that we feel then we need everything to be perfect, and everything needs to be figured out, like our niche, our brand, and so we can use this to start procrastinating and to put off like launching something or really putting offers out there. Yeah. Which obviously you didn't do. And I'm so proud of you that you had a coach and that you actually really started basically with launching your program for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously you already had an audience, so actually your social media following it's it's already quite big. So compared to other yoga teachers that I work with, for example. So yeah, really it is. So if you only have like a few hundred followers on Instagram, it's going to be harder, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
but I also think, that's very true. No, you're right in that. I mean, obviously there's everything, right? There's those with like 50,000 or whatever. But I guess it's also what's hard. No, you're right. But what's hard as well is that I find that it's really hard to engage people, because I find that people have become a little bit, they treat their social media different, as in when they go in and watch. I feel as if some years back, people engaged more with the person who posted.
Yes, for sure. I mean, of course, It was also different with the algorithm, and and there wasn't so much noise, right? So now it's just like so many more people. Everybody's also following so many more people, and you can't even see everything that everybody's posting. It's just not possible. And attention spans are super low. It's not like you have 7,000 real people standing in your backyard, right? Or in a big event.
That would have been great.
Like a little football stadium full of people. Like, here's my message. No, we have to treat that differently. I think studies show that actually that's why in email list, subscribers are still converting at a higher level.
Yeah.
But up to a point. I think I also heard that especially the last year, conversion rates actually went down because there's so much insecurity right now. And I think our generation in the Western world, we have to say that it's not everywhere, but our generation in the Western world, we had a pretty easy life, right? There wasn't any major wars or upheavals or so there's been like the financial crisis, but that really didn't really affect such a huge group of people. And now there's so much insecurity, and at the same time people are looking for guidance and experts and help to improve their lives. So it's a weird mix, I think, right now. I think what's really important, I think you're doing this, is you said that somewhere, that you really focus on what you're offering, how it's going to help your students, how it's going to help your clients.
Yeah.
I think that's really, I see that in my business. So what always brings me back is when I really put my clients first and think about what I can do to serve them, basically.
Yeah, that's really beautiful what you're saying, and I agree with you. And the thing is, it's really it's when we can take a step back and actually come back to that, that's when it's working, right? But what I've also noticed is that sometimes when we kind of start to panic and we're just trying to produce more, we need to put more out there, we need to make it work, and then we get a little bit lost in that. And then we forget about exactly that the best is to actually try just to serve the clients, which is actually all we need to do, really.
Yeah. Let's get back to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that was a really beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do?
So people can find me, and I've tried to make it as easy as possible. Both my website, my Instagram handle, and my Facebook are the same. So it's Yogisha, Yogi, and then CHA for Charlotte, all in one word. And obviously then the website is yogisha.com. And so they can find me. I think the easiest is probably through the Instagram, because it's so easy today to just communicate with people from there. And then I have actually a podcast as well, where I do speak about Ayurveda and psychology. So they could also, if they would be interested in hearing what I have to say in that, on whichever platform they prefer, or even actually now on YouTube, because I've posted it there as well. So the Ayurveda and psychology podcast as well.
Amazing. I'm going to add it to the show notes as well. I'm actually going to connect you with a yoga teacher and Ayurveda practitioner that I met in Bali. And she's originally from Ireland, and she also had a yoga studio in the south of France.
Wow. Who is this? What's her name?
I'm going to connect you. So
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susanne. And I hope to see you in Europe then soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Blissful Biz podcast. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes. This would mean the world to me. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to never miss a new episode. To learn more about how to work with me one-on-one, my courses and membership, or to get instant access to freebies, workshops, and more, go to susannereiker.com right now. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.